Good afternoon, everybody. How's everyone doing? We ready to learn how to build a full screen mobile menu on Webflow today? Please know this is live. So with that being said, feel free to comment and be active in the chat. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to try to go through as smoothly as possible to help you guys out. And again, yeah, if you have any questions, just feel free to just drop some comments in the chat and I will go back and forth with you. But first, let's start off. My name is Kyle Pitticelli. I'm sure you've seen me in the Webflow chat quite a few times. I do build websites. I have a small agency that I run with my girlfriend currently. We do branding and positioning, and I focus on building the sites in Webflow. And I've been doing it for about 2 to 3 years now, and I've learned a few tricks that I'd like to start sharing and seeing if I can help you all out and building some pretty cool stuff. So let's get rolling. And again, like I said, feel free to comment and anything. So absolutely, Ezra, you can definitely watch it back. This is going to be recording. That's why I did it in YouTube Live, so this will stay on the channel. You're absolutely welcome to come back and watch it later. Also, I do plan on doing more videos in the future, so please comment or message me on Facebook if there's any ideas you have for new videos that you'd like to go with. Anyways, let's get started. All right. So here's the mobile menu that I showed everybody in the chat on the Facebook forum. We're looking to build something like this, full screen, top to bottom, good interaction, nice and smooth. Sub menu for services that you can go through, heating, ducted, all that. So what I'm going to do is start this from scratch. I just want to go over a few details about how this menu actually works and show you what's behind the scenes, and then we'll go through and try to build it from scratch today with you. So jumping into the navigator, the menu, I actually created it as a symbol. That way I can drop it from page to page, make it a lot easier for me, especially if you have a multi-page site. But let me just close up some pieces here. So we do have the menu element. What you will notice on the menu element, we have it set to position fixed. It's covering the entire viewport that we have selected here. Also, please let me know if there's any questions you have in the middle, if you can't see anything. This is my first time doing this stream, so I want to make sure that everything is available and you can see it. But nonetheless, jumping back in, we get the full screen menu. I created a symbol out of it. Fixed positioning, full screen, attached to the body. You'll notice the background image here with the dots that really kind of classes up the menu a little bit. That image, again, I have it 100% viewport width, so it's going to take up the full viewport. Also absolutely positioned and set -1 z-index, so it'll sit behind all the content here. And again, absolutely positioned to the menu. That way we can have it full screen, kind of tucked in the corner there and out of the way. Notice as well, I have 3 primary blocks that I'm using here. First is going to be the mobile nav, the mobile menu nav, and don't kill me for naming. I'm trying to get better at naming classes, and I think we all can use some work there, but hopefully they're clear enough that they help you out. Now notice this is 100% of the viewport. I have the mobile nav set to 10. The next block is going to be my links block, which I have set to about 65% of the viewport height. And then finally I have the contact block, which I have to 25% of the viewport height, giving me the full 100%. Within each of these blocks, I'm going to have a wrapper, but also if you can see here, I have a container. And with the container, I like to set it, I think I actually knocked that off one wrong, but I like to keep them around for my layouts and designs. I like to be around 90% of the viewport. That way you can get like a decent amount of margin, but you still totally utilize the space. Again, I like to use the container just so if I have to make any global changes, as you'll see, it's going to change all of my elements in the block with the container. And make that adjustment. The only thing you're not going to see is this button actually move, and the reason why this button is not moving is it's absolutely positioned to the body because I want it to remain as we scroll up and down the page. And I liked how the kind of the effect that we get, I'll show you in the preview again, that the menu comes out from behind it and it's its own layer. And then obviously you see here next the logo pops up, you have the links pop up, all in order. So going back just to the structure, again, within here, we just have another container. We have a wrapper. And we have our links, and then for this particular dropdown, we'll go through it a little bit later, but this is its own link block. So I have a breakout link block, I call it, which is going to have a wrapper for your dropdown, which has another menu link, as well as the white arrow, SVG, that we're going to actually animate. And then we have what I call the sublink wrapper, which only contains a grid. And that grid just makes it way easier to get the alignment set up. I'm sure you've all used it. It's just a really easy and quick tool to use to get done what you need and get this type of alignment. Is there any questions in the chat before I kind of get rolling? I know we only got a few people in here, but if there are, just feel free to chat me and let me know if you're caught up, or if you want me to slow down. Definitely let me know. Now that you have a general idea of the layout, what I want to do is show you a little bit about, actually maybe I'll go in that after, about the animations. Let's just get the structure done. So I have a new project open up here. I like to start the width for my mobile projects at about 375 pixels, even though I try to keep everything relative to like the actual viewport width. That way it scales appropriately, and I can try to maintain proportions as the viewport either expands widthwise or height-wise. But as far as getting yourself set up originally or from the onset, I usually start around 375 pixels. It's not too wide, not too narrow, and it gives you enough canvas to really see and work with it. You'll also notice I'm actually using a really big monitor. I'm using a 27-inch LG monitor, and I don't use, especially when I go into mobile, I like to actually shrink the window quite a bit because, of course, mobile is not going to ever be that height. So I bring this down so it's a little bit more reasonable. You can see the content will fit in nice and cleanly here. And it just makes it easier for you to wrap your head around it. One thing that you'll notice as you go through different breakpoints, and just as an example here, let's go back. You can see how it'll fit. This might be fine if you look at it on desktop, tablet, mobile landscape, and then you go to mobile portrait. Let's just hide the menu. There we go. They come out to 375. Working on a few fitment issues with these badges. They actually might not make it into the final design, just as a heads up, because I know people are going to notice that. But I like to just keep this a little shorter. That way I can really see what it's going to look like on mobile. I feel like a lot of times I see people comment on Webflow in the forum, and they're saying, oh, well, this doesn't look right. You know, the viewport's too high. The alignment's not right. If you just shrink your browser window size to something a little closer to that of a mobile device, it's going to make this process a lot easier for you. Just a little tip on my end. You also can make a container that's set to the certain, like based on what you design the viewport for mobile in. Just set the pixels, give it like a color, something like, let's just take like a div here, and we'll drop it in the body, and we'll set this div as like a, let's just call it a frame, just to be easy here. And we want to set this to fixed, right? We want to give it a width of 375, and maybe we want to go like 600 or so pixels. Change the background color to something that you'll be able to see. And let's bring this up on the Z index. Let's just do 300. Bring the opacity down so you can actually see what we're working with. And let's just do 700 or something like that. Sometimes what I'll do when I have a design created in Figma that has fixed pixel sizes, what I'll do is I'll take this frame, I'll lay it over, and I'll just use it as a reference point to see what I want in and outside of the viewport. That way you can start designing and you know where your constraints are for the viewport height. It's definitely a cool little trick that I've learned to use. It keeps me, it gives me the ability to get things done really quickly, and not just get too caught up in the sizing and everything that Webflow has, because sometimes you can create too long of a viewport in Webflow and it's going to screw up your whole design. So this is just one trick that I use to keep me lined up. Of course, you're going to want to take the width 375, which is what my designer will create mockups for, and then the height, I don't have the exact pixel height, but she has a fixed pixel that she uses all the time, and I just set it to that so I can see what should and shouldn't be in the viewport. So let's jump out of there and jump right into the project. So first of all, we have our body. I'm not going to go into too much time spending on building out the hero and everything, but what I want to do is get right into the menu. And one thing that we want to start with on the menu is to build it. So I like to start with a div block, and we'll name it menu. And what we're going to do is we're going to position it fixed, cover the whole screen. Let's give it a background color of that gray that we have from the original menu. Let's make sure, yep, my 375. Now this just gives you a nice starting point. We're going to take another div, drop it in. We'll call this menu nav. Menu nav block. And we'll go back. I believe I had this set to 10 viewport height. We're going to drop another div. And I like to just set the structure of what the menu is going to look like ahead of time instead of doing one block at a time. That way I can just see how the proportions are going to work out. So we'll call this one the menu links block, which I believe I had that at 65% of the viewport height, and start to see this kind of framing out. Finally, we'll drop in this last block, which is going to be the menu contact, which I spelled that right, block. And I believe I had this one for 25 viewport height. So now this fits perfectly inside of here. We can start now by building out a container. So quite straightforward. I take another div. I'm going to call this one just my general container. And I like to keep it at about 90 viewport width. So as you can see, the viewport width size. Enter. And then I'm going to take each of these divs. I'm going to align them center, center. Go in here, center, center. And then center, center. Now there's this weird thing if you ever get caught out when you put a fresh div in. I'm not sure why Webflow does it, but in the corner you might be able to see that it automatically adds 75 pixels of padding in the bottom right and left hand corners. Maybe someone in the audience knows what that exactly the reason is for that, but I'm not quite sure. I just make sure to go in and set it to 0 so it doesn't screw me up in the end. Take my container, pop it into the other blocks, and now all of our content will be in alignment. Now, let's go back to my other project here. Just take a look at the menu, and what I did was in a container, and then I have a mobile navigation wrapper with a link block in it. So the container, the reason why I put a wrapper for this content within this container is I don't really want to modify the container too much as I'm moving through the project, especially if you're starting with, we're just at the menu. We haven't even done anything else on the site. And the thing is, you want the container to remain very simple, and you want it to be, what you don't want to do is modify it to a point where you have to make multiple types of containers. You want to just change that class and keep it simple, where it's just like, this is 90 viewport width, or this is X number of pixels wide, and just keep it. That's it. So what I'm going to do now is throw another div in the container. I'm going to call it the menu nav wrapper. Set its display setting to flex, horizontal, and we're going to have it justify to right and left. Then we'll toss in, let's go back to another project, toss in a link block. Link block right into that wrapper. Notice it's going to go to the right. If I add another link block, it'll pop to the left, but we're not going to use that at this point. Within that link block, we're going to toss in an image. This image I already uploaded is going to be the SVG for the logo. Might be a little bit small here. One trick that I like to do sometimes, and it may not be I think it works good for responsivity for the website, but everyone's got their own opinion whether they want to stick with fixed pixels or they want to do relative units. Like viewport, I might do like 15 viewport width. It's a little small. Maybe you do 45, too big. 30 sounds about right. So now as we scale, this is going to shrink proportionate to the width. And the reason why I like to use width on mobile is a lot of this, screens will change obviously by height, but I like to choose one or the other. The height for the menu, I want to have it stick to full viewport, but as far as like some of the sizing for the images and whatnot, I like to have it where the width changes, the proportion of all the elements, I want to have them all tied to one unit or one change. So if the viewport's changing in width, The logo is going to change a little bit. The button size is going to change a little bit. The content text size or the type size is going to change a little bit, but they're going to stay within like a kind of a tight ratio, so they won't expand and fall out of alignment. One trick, but you can certainly do it in pixels if that's what you're used to as well. Let's go move into the links block, and we'll get to the button a little bit later. It's a little bit more complex to build, but we will build that out. Let's go back to our container. I believe I have a menu links wrapper. Yep. Pop in another div. Oh, I actually just realized that I'm not in the corner screen. Now I'm in the corner screen, so you can at least see me. We're going to call this the menu links wrapper. Okay, and then let me see how I have that set. To vertical, left aligned. So let's go in and change our layout, display setting to flex, vertical, left align, and I believe I have justified to the top, which is fine. Then what I want to do, back to my other menu, is add in my link blocks, and we're going to build out this breakout link block, basically trigger element separately. So let's just get started with actually I might even be able to copy. That's perfect. So menu link block, I'm going to copy 2, 3, 4. I think I have 5 in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll fill out some of the names. So we have services, specials, financing. And in case any of you are wondering, I mean, I just copied and pasted this menu link into here with the text, but it is set for, I did it again by viewport units. It's up to you if you want to use pixels or not. But I also have it set up so there's no text decoration on the link. I have it set up so it always capitalizes the first letter, so we can make sure that regardless, this always stays consistent. It looks like a menu. Let me grab one more. We need contact. Perfect. Let's just see. Cool, the links are working. Great. So now we have our alignment or our links set in place. I also have spacing. Again, I did viewport width. So as this changes, even though these are going to get a little bigger, they're still relatively in good proportion. Also to keep in mind, as the screen widens, you're going to end up like naturally in a display or a viewport, you're going to get more height. So it's less likely that you're going to get any of the text here pushing up into the other content. But on occasion it does happen, and that is because I'm using the viewport width as a way to size the text, but I'm constraining the links block to the viewport height, which gives me the full menu, but it can cause some kind of issues. You might want to add a little padding or something in there to ensure that it doesn't go over, but for the most part, as long as you have enough spacing on the top and the bottom, you will be good to go there. So let's move on, and what we're going to create next is this breakout link block. Okay. And let's just grab a div. I'm going to drop it here, so it's going to take that place, and we call it again breakout link block. Good. Let's check my alignment. Vertical left justify, cool. I'm gonna do flex, vertical, align left, justify top. And we also want to create, because when we go back to this one here, because I'm going to use this entire block, this drop down wrapper as an interaction, as you can see here, I want to wrap this. You don't want to just have the link and have this separate. It allows you to line it up better and make any kind of mod. So what I want to create now is the menu drop down wrapper within this div. Okay, and within that, I'm going to want that to be aligned horizontally to the bottom. And the reason I'm going to have that aligned to the bottom is you'll see like SVGs, sometimes it can be a little bit of a pain if they have any kind of like padding from when they were exported. It just lets you get a fresh start so everything is aligned. You can just push this SVG up a little bit. I did it by 2 viewport units, which kind of gave me the balance that I was looking for. The nice thing again is this gets wider. not only is the size of the text going to change, and the size of the arrow, the distance, it's all going to change in proportion to each other, so it looks like a natural change. And it stays nice and clean and consistent with the ratio and the balance you came up with. So let's go ahead and bring services into the drop-down wrapper. I'm going to grab an image. So I have this arrow SVG. Let me see here. Let's see here. All right. Sorry about that. YouTube's just telling me the resolution is a little low. If this is hard for anybody to see, just let me know. We'll try to see if I can resolve that. Just as the bit rate's a little bit lower than it could. Now it's in excellent condition, so we're good. So I'm going to drag this arrow into the menu drop-down wrapper. Right. Change the positioning. Drop-down wrapper is going to be changed to horizontal. Align to the bottom. What did I do there? Let's see. Horizontal, bottom, left justify. Oh, that's what I did. Drop down. So left justify. So the reason this is coming down here is this menu link still has the margin that is applied to the rest of the menu links. All I'm going to do for this menu link is I'm just going to say, call it class no margin, or you can do no bottom margin, whatever you want to do. That way I'm not affecting the other classes. I can remove that. These will align together. Right? These are obviously tight, but we still have a little bit more build to go with. So I'm just going to leave these kind of the way they're sitting, and I'm going to try to build in the other elements. The way to get the margin back that you have between these links of 7 viewport width that I've used is to actually just add that to the menu breakout link block. So let's go over here, breakout link block, 7 viewport width. And now we have our spacing back. Let's see, looks more natural. Let's go back to our drop-down wrapper, and let's give this one with no margin. I think I added some space to it. Let's see here. You get about 3 viewport width. So let's bring this over. A little bit of right margin, 3 viewport width. And then we'll take the image, which we'll just call white arrow, and just give this a little bit of push. I'll set it to 1 viewport width down. See how I like it. It's not bad. Maybe we'll go up a little bit. Maybe a 2. I think is where I had it. Let's see. Yep, 2 viewport width. So that's going to bring it a little bit more aligned. It might be a little high. Maybe we can go 1.5, drop it a little bit. And now it's starting to look like a menu. You get something set up. Now, moving on to getting those sublinks in there, we want to now add, so we have our breakout block. Okay. We have our drop-down wrapper that we just built. We move on. Now we want to put our sublink wrapper. So this is basically going to contain this grid for what I call the sublinks on the page. And that one's going to just be block. That one's going to have overflow visible. And I think one thing, actually we'll revisit it, for overflow that's going to happen on the breakout link block, will hide this content when it's closed. So let's do our sublink wrapper. Good. Display, and then we want to take our grid. So let's add a new grid. Like that. I want it to be 2 by 3. And within the grid, I'm just going to copy from here. We're going to have these other menu sublinks. So they're just, I name them differently. That way we can create a different class sizing for them. I brought the color, I just desaturated or took some, turned the opacity down just so they had a little bit of contrast with the rest of the menu and it was obvious. And let's go ahead and drop some of these into the grid. Got it. Okay. Done. And then we're going to copy, paste, 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 paste. Awesome. So now what we're going to do here Just jump into some of the grid settings. I'm going to use viewport width on this just to make it easy for me. Let's say 4, maybe 3. And I might have it opposite of that. Let's see. 3 and 4. Okay. 3, 4. Awesome. Let's just go. We'll just, for the good measure, we'll just change these. So we got heating, cooling, ductless. Oh, never mind. I did that wrong. So I want to have one less column. This looks better. Heating, cooling, ductless, service. Let's get back here. Service. We have maintenance. Air quality maintenance. All right. Maintenance. So that just gives us a little bit of spacing here. Now, going back here to achieve the spacing, as you can see, this menu sublink wrapper, not the grid, but the sublink wrapper that I put the grid inside of, that is actually directly sitting against the drop-down wrapper. So in order to give us some spacing there, I actually found, interestingly enough, originally I set the sublink wrapper to have padding, but for some reason when you close the menu in the animation to 0 pixels, the padding remains, which is just doesn't look that great. So you basically add margin between the links. For some reason it just doesn't close to 0 pixels. It'll leave that little bit of padding in there. So what I found, interestingly enough, of course, is to take that sublink grid and just add margin instead of padding. So put the margin to basically push the grid 2 and 3. So we'll do and give us a little bit of spacing. And for some reason, I don't know what it is with Webflow, but when I do the margin on the left and the top, when I close the whole thing down, this is an example, I have 0 pixels. All of this closes and hides. Before, what I had was extra space between services and specials because it was actually taking the padding and just creating more space, and it was a bummer. But I did figure that out. That should work for you. The other one thing that we want to make sure that we do here is to make sure that the menu breakout link block is set to overflow none. So this entire block here, we want to set that to overflow none. And the reason we want to do that is because when this closes and goes down to 0 pixels, we want to make sure that none of these links from this grid are overhanging outside the content and then ended up overlapping specials. So we want to make sure once this closes, no content from inside is going to come out. All right. So let's do good. This is set up pretty well right now. I'm going to move on to the contact section just so we can get the rest of our content in, and then we'll go back and add some animations in. So with the container, or with the contact section and its container, as you can see here, same idea. Let's bring this down, maybe collapse some of this. Contact block. I have my 90 viewport with container, which I already plugged in. Then I have the menu contact wrapper, which I'll build out here. Drop it in. Awesome. So now we have the menu contact wrapper, which we're going to have with vertical alignment left. So we want to have these stack on top of each other. So we'll change that to flex, vertical, left alignment, top justified by default. I'm just going to copy these text links in. Really straightforward. Boom. I'll copy the link blocks. I mean, these are the social links, just for time's sake. New contact wrapper. Great. And I believe I had a little bit of margin off of this. How did I set that up? Text link block. Yeah, all right. So on that link block, yep, we just have a little bit of margin to give us some separation. And now we have most of the content. So what I just want to add now is I'm going to add that background image. Let me just see. Actually, we'll hold off on that. Let me do the button first. So for the button, I want it to hover over everything. So if we go in here, we open up my button, notice that it's its own element on the page. It's a symbol I created. I have the menu button, which is going to contain everything. It's fixed, so it will remain in the viewport, and it's relative to the body. I know we have this little kind of 911 emergency. I think I just have to set the body to relative on the project. But I basically have it 3 viewport height from the top, 5 viewport width from the side, from the right side, and it's going to position this element nice so it remains even as you scroll. And let's see, let's go back to the button. Now you'll notice as well, I have 2 buttons. I have a menu close, and then I have a menu button open. Now the menu button in itself as a symbol is just a container and used for positioning purposes, where the menu button open, it actually contains, one, your background color. It contains the line wrapper, which contains the 3 menu lines, top, middle, and bottom. And basically what this is used for is this is a trigger. So you're going to click on this trigger. It's going to open player animation. The reason I did a menu button close is because I want to actually add some JavaScript to stop the body from scrolling when the menu's open. Because what will end up happening if that's not there, and you should be able to see it in this preview, since this is fixed to the body, as I scroll, the button's going to disappear. So it's kind of like you want to get the best of both worlds. You want to have the button appear constantly when it's closed. So even though I have an animation out, the button will still be at the top of the screen. It'll still be there when you open the menu. But what I want to do with this button is have it work as a trigger to stop the body from scrolling. So if the body stops scrolling when this is published, this won't move because we have no scroll action. There's no interaction that's tied to this button or the body that's going to allow it to scroll. So it'll remain in here regardless if the user's thumbing up and down or using a scroll wheel, whatever they're viewing it on. But let's get started with the menu button first of all. So you want to have this as a symbol. We're going to throw it as a div. We're going to call it menu button. Awesome. And what we want to put inside, let's just give it a color, like a background color for now, just so you can see where it goes, of this green. We want to have it set to fixed. You can probably let's just do top right hand corner of the body. Let's give it a 200 z-index, so now it's visible. And I believe I have it set to auto on here. No, I have some padding, so I have 3, no, that's the open trigger. Yeah, so this is just auto. And we're going to push it off the body by 3 and 5, I believe, 3 viewport height. And then we're going to go off by 5 viewport width, push it to the side. Now obviously this is really big. This is going to be set to auto, so whatever you frame inside of it is going to be it's going to shrink a little bit. So the next piece here is going to be, I'll hold off on button close, but I'm going to go to menu button open, which is going to be a trigger that's also going to set some of my constraints for padding. Let's go ahead. So within that, and I believe I had 3 viewport width all around. That's 75. Let's hit shift. Retain this a little bit. So you can see this, if we turn on X-ray, it's kind of just pushing this here. It's getting small because you're adding that, that padding to it. But once we put in the other block, we should be good. So actually what I'll do is I'm just going to reverse this for the sake of seeing it. And now it basically went to auto and isn't showing anything because nothing's displayed in it. So let's go ahead and we're going to do the button line wrapper. which I believe in the menu button is going to be centered and have overflow on it, no overflow on it. So let's do this. Menu button open. Menu, we'll call it lines wrapper. Button open, that's going to be set to flex, center, center. So now our lines wrapper will be somewhat centered, but we have nothing in it to actually create any sizing. And what we want to do with the lines is it's just another div. It's just got a set height. I did it by viewport units. You could do it by pixels if that's easier for you. I get 6 and 75. So basically all this top line is a div dropped in the lines wrapper. Name it top line. Give it a width of 6 viewport width units. We'll do 1 viewport width height. Let's make sure we get rid of these settings here. The 75. Now you can see the line shrinks. Give it a background color of white. Save that. Awesome. Then we'll take the top line, copy it, duplicate, do middle, take the next one, duplicate, do bottom. And the reason why I'm duplicating them and then renaming them is I can have a little bit more control over them in the long run, because they're all going to have to change positions differently. And I'm just duplicating them, and you want to create a new class, because the last thing you want to do is duplicate and then have these all be top line or something, and you modify one of them, and then basically what's going to happen is they're all going to change at the same time. That's not going to be really helpful to you. So the next thing I did on this button line wrapper, I left it as block setting, and I believe the middle line has the margin on it to give that illusion of spacing. So let's go back and change that. And again, why you want to change the classing. Oh, it's padding. Okay, now we have a little bit of separation here. Middle, all right, let's see. So I still need to add in that padding. Bin 3, let's do that now. 3. Now this is starting to look a lot more like a button. And this stuff will always remain centered because we obviously have the menu button open, set to flex. Center, the lines are always going to stay there. And I believe on the line wrapper, oh, we're good. Should be all set. I added a little bit of corner radius on the menu button. This is going way too fast. Button wrapper, button open. Just see if that's pull that off. Maybe I did menu button. I added 8 pixels, and then I kick this to 0 overflow. Cool. So back on the menu button, we have no overflow that way, because these layers and that second trigger that's going to go underneath it, we don't want them to bleed out. And we basically at the same time, we can control the shape of all of those by just modifying the radius for the corners. And now this looks a lot more like the button that we have here in the original project. A little different, a little bigger, but that's all right. That'll be fine. Now, creating the action first for the opening, probably a good idea. Actually, let's go back and do, should we do that? The button, where are we? Yeah, let's just make our button close trigger. So all the button close trigger is going to be is another div that is basically going to be hidden at first, but when you click on open, this trigger is going to then appear and be above the menu button open trigger. And the reason why I did that is because I want to be able to control the the scroll and stop the actual body from scrolling. And I'm not quite sure how to do like an on second click with JavaScript. I'm not quite there yet. So if you are, maybe you can save the step. The way I worked around it with CSS is to just create this new class, menu button close. It's completely invisible. It's just a layer that's sitting on top. And you click the menu button, this layer comes in. When you click it again, it initiates the close sequence, but also initiates the JavaScript that turns the body back on to scroll. Because then basically what you do is you have a menu button that opens the menu. It looks great. It locks scroll, but then you close it. And then the remainder of the page, once the menu's closed, can't scroll. And obviously we don't want that. So I add this menu button close trigger within the menu button. So let's go ahead. I have the menu button open. Actually, oh, that's because I can set Z index. Let's just go ahead and create the close. Oh, don't want it in there. Above. Let's go menu button close. Now, you can see obviously it's taking up space, but remember that the menu button element that all of this is sitting in is fixed. So because it's fixed, the children of this, if set to absolute, will then sit on top of it. Now, and because the menu button is constraining everything here, I should be able to simply set the menu close trigger to full. Of course, that didn't work, but let's see. Full, and it should sit within it. Let's see here. Menu button close. So position to the menu button. Do I have any? Oh, that's what it is. It's the 75 pixels on the side that Webflow automatically adds in. So now menu button close is identical in size because it's sitting within the menu button container. Go back here, up here. And it won't have any overflow because we set it to overflow off. We are able to set the shape so it will clip anything to remain in that shape with the rounded corners. And again, it's just going to sit here on top. Now what we have to do with that menu button close, so I have open. I set that open to relative, and I use big numbers for my Z index. I don't go crazy. Everyone says like do it like 10,000 or whatever for the highest Z index. I like to keep them in like whole numbers. So I either do them like try to do them in like multiples of 10 or multiples of 100. And each layer I try to go like, so if you're using hundreds, I would go like 0, 100, 200, 300, 4, and then go up from there to set my layers. And the reason why I like to go 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 is that gives me room that when after I'm like working on the project for a bit, it gives me some room to add an element in between those layers. So it doesn't confuse myself. I don't know if I did that on this project, but that's definitely a new technique that I'm trying to use. That way it gives you a little room, because if everything is 1, 2, 3, like if you need to put something between 3 and 2, I guess you could do 2.5, but they're just such small numbers. It's easier for me to just think in tens or hundreds and do 1 at 100, 1 at 150, 1 at 2. But that's for anybody, it's your choice of how you want to do that. So let's go back here. Our menu button's good. Our menu button open is set to relative because we want this to be layered up. So let's go open, relative, set this to 100, Z index, menu button close, because we want it to layer on top. We're going to do that. Let's just call it 200 Z index. And now what's going to happen until this is, you basically set an animation for its initial state to start at hide the actual element. This menu button close trigger is going to be on top. But when we set the interaction, we'll set it for initial state to be off. It won't even be there. So what you do is you're clicking through to the menu button open trigger. Close appears on top of it as part of that animation. You click on close, it disappears. And this is something that in a follow-up video for like a full screen, like a mega nav, I'll show you how to do it with that as well. Just setting invisible triggers and learning how to keep yourself kind of lined up with that. It's when you recognize it, it's pretty sweet because you can do a lot with it. Now, let's see here. Got our menu button. We're good to go there. I think we'll just skip on the dots and everything. Let's just keep moving along with this. We get this pretty well aligned. Let's start with animating the drop down wrapper, just kind of get that done. So what we're going to do is click on the whole drop down wrapper, which, as I said before, it's going to contain, we don't want to do the link block, we want to do the wrapper because we want services and we want the arrow to be part of the trigger. So no matter where the user clicks, they'll be able to click on the arrow, they can click on services, that's the whole trigger. So let's go up, we're going to set it as element trigger on click or tap. I like to just get ahead of it. If this menu is not going to be on, say, desktop or tablet, and sometimes it does look really good to have a mobile type of menu on tablet versus a regular desktop layout, I just like to get ahead and unclick what it's probably not going to be on ahead of time. So go first click, start an animation, and we'll name it, let's call it sub menu sublink drop down open. Okay. And what we want to affect here, this is not really the grid, we want to affect the sublink wrapper. And we want to set its size and initial state. We want to set its height to 0 pixels, so it doesn't even appear here. Then what I like to do too with I think I find it really helpful with animations is just like start out slow. Like start with the simple sizing. Like if you're gonna do sliding, or you're gonna have a menu slide out, you're gonna have opacity in combination with it, you're gonna have something sliding from the right. Just start with the simple things like on and off or size so you can see it or not see it, and just like make sure that it looks right before you start adding in opacity, because this menu, the action menu here that you add interactions, it's gonna get long really quick. Like I have some that go like, I don't know, 30 different pieces that are all interacting together. And if you're trying to modify like opacity, font color, and everything, when really the primary goal of the interaction is just to reveal a drawer, start with revealing the drawer and then build on from that. So size, we have it at 0 pixels. On click, let's duplicate this. Size, we want to go, in this case, because there's content in it, if you do a fixed set of pixels or percentage or viewport height or whatever, depending on the change in the viewport, and because my content, my text type size is variable, if I set it to pix, I won't be able to, I might find myself on a certain viewport size that the text is too big and I don't have a large enough container that's opened up. So the best thing you can do, swap it to auto. It's going to show all the content. I like to keep my duration around 0.4, 400 milliseconds. It's pretty smooth. And for this one, I'll do it ease because it's just really straightforward, but you can use any action you like. I just find ease is a really strong go-to. Let's see if this works. There we go. We have our initial interaction. Now, again, like I said, what we want to do is just make sure that interaction works. I'm not worried about opacity settings or anything coming in. I want to go back to my second click so we can close it. And so it's actually easier to just dupe this. We'll use sublink menu dropdown. Let's rename it so we know what it is. So we'll do dropdown close. We don't need one of these. And what we'll do is set that with ease, 400 millisecond duration, 0 pix. Let's see if that worked, or did I screw it up? Not great. Oh, did I do width? Yeah, that's why. So height, we want to go to pix, 0 pixels, and hopefully that works. Let's see what happens here. There we go. Simple, just like that. Again, spacing is not ideal, but I just to kind of get the animations done, show you how to do it. I think this is best. What you also notice on the original one that I have is I have the spinning arrow as we go up. Very easy to do. Again, that's, like I said before, let's just make sure we get the action that we're actually trying to accomplish done first. And then we can go back in and say, all right, well, this arrow, we want to have it, let's affect it. We want to rotate it, but we want to set its initial state. I think I did Z to 0 degrees on the Z axis. So now its initial state is pointing down. We'll duplicate it, drag it in so it happens or occurs along with this action of the menu opening. Swap our duration, so it's 400 milliseconds, a little bit shorter. Ease, And then we want this to do what, 180? Cool. So now when we look at it, there we go. Quick spin of the arrow, go in our close interaction, rotate, drop this in with this one, 400 millisecond duration, ease, Z index 0 or Z position, and now we should have pretty good looking drop down, nice and smooth. And one thing that we want to always remember that we do is on the drop down wrapper, because it technically is a link. When we go in here, I think because this will give you the pointer finger, but the arrow won't. So what we want to do is take the entire drop down wrapper, go to our styles panel all the way to the bottom, and we want to just swap the cursor for link and status pointer. That way, when we hover over, we have the pointer, and the user knows exactly what to do. Awesome. So now moving on to getting the actual menu block to open up. And one thing you might notice on Webflow right now is it's rendering in the designer. You can see this kind of like this weird screw up here, the way it's rendering, like this block looks a little thicker than this and that. When you publish this, you won't see it. When you look at it on a mobile, like a browser, you're not going to see it. I don't know why when you modify or you set these for viewport heights and widths, it does that. It's just something in Webflow. So knowing that, I figured some of you probably see that and are like, what the heck is going on? That will be fine when you publish it. But if you use strict pixel heights, Webflow rendering inside of the actual designer should be fine. Cool. So now we want this button, and notice menu button close is open. We want to actually change that and have the trigger menu button open to affect this menu. Let's go ahead, mouse click, shut off on the platforms we're not going to use it, or the viewports we're not going to use it on. Create a new animation. We'll do menu open. And what we want to do is we want to actually grab the entire menu div, set an action, and we want that thing's initial state to be off. And now you can see kind of where I was getting at before, where we just have the button hovering over, and anything that you have in this body will sit here. We just, for time's sake, I didn't want to build that completely out. But what you do is the button's going to stay here. The menu is off by default. And let me just open that interaction up in my existing project. Menu button, open. Now you'll see I have a lot of initial states here. Let's just start with the easy part. Like I said before, we just want the menu to be gone, hidden, and then turn on. Just start with what's easy and get something working. So menu is being affected. This is working on menu button close. Duplicate. We want the menu to turn on. I'm setting its display. It's displayed to block, which is fine. So it'll just turn on. So when we click here, of course it doesn't turn on. Let's see here. Oh, that's because menu button close is still on top, right? The trigger. So what I want to do is take menu button close, not that, menu button close. I just want to go back to the styles panel with menu button close. I want to just set that default to off. And now we can actually hit it, because what was happening is menu button close is sitting on top. You're just hitting on something with no interaction, even though what you can see beneath it looks like it's there. There is still that trigger sitting on top, so you're not clicking through. But now with it off, we're able to actually trigger the animation. Simple, on, off. I'm not going to, as I said before, because I'm concerned with scroll, I will do it just for the video, just to show you the second click action of how to turn it off, just for the sake of showing you in case you don't want to go that far. So what I'm going to do is take menu button open. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to rename it. So do menu close. And this is on second click. This initial state and we'll set it back to off. So now you should click on and off. Very simple. Again, don't clutter your head with all the other animations like bringing in the text over here, sliding it in, changing the opacity, all the timing. Don't think about that. Just get it off and on. It's a good place to start. Now going back to open, now we'll start building out some of the animations. So what we want to do is we want to have it kind of roll in and grow in from the bottom. And what I did with that, let me look here, we got menu hide show, top line, let's see here, links, new breakout, menu move. Okay, that's where we're at. Menu move. We have basically it set to 100%. So I have the menu is basically, if this is the viewport, the menu is up here, and it's going to slide in, and it's going to come off. But it's going to be set to overflow off, so you're not going to be able to see it and scroll all the way up to it, but it's just going to slide in place. Let's go set that up. Open, yep. And click on hide show. So if I click here, now it gives me access to this again. We'll do menu, click again. We want to move it, bring it back to its initial state. We want to set it on the y-axis to -100%. Not menu 100% $sign, but hold on, let's see. Okay, so now it's completely gone. We're going to redo this, move, let it come right after hide and show. Sometimes when you set up an interaction like this, it may be look a little janky. You just got to play with it, but we'll get there. Time's right. I set the duration, I think, for 0.8, 800 milliseconds with an ease. And we want to have it come back down to 0%. We don't want it to be 100. We took it negative 100%, and then we're setting it to its 0 position. That's all we're doing. If we did 100%, we push it down the page. So you just want to set it back to 0. There you go. You can see all the content slide in. Of course, all of this needs to be hidden, but we'll get there. So we got menu 100%. Let's try to do some of our content here. So at first we're going to hide the logo. So the logo I want to have be there, but what I want to do is set its opacity to 0 for its initial state. I want this to come in. Its opacity I want to set to 100. Again, I do everything ease and about 0.8 milliseconds or 800 ms. So then it will fade in. Let's just see how this works. It's probably going to be a little janky. And what I like to do too is notice everything can go together here for the initial state because it's just you're setting where it's going to be initially. But as you start to frame it out, I find it a little easier not to group things right away and to play the animation. It'll be kind of like like drop in. But what I really am trying to do is just see what sequence I want, like what feels natural, okay? So like the menu is going to slide in, then you would assume that the logo is going to pop in momentarily after that. And you'll see logo, these all come in about 0.1 seconds after each other. So now that we have the logo come in, let's go to our menu link, do opacity, bring it to starting. 0, get it again, opacity. I'm going to actually leave it there, so we'll just leave that. I'm going to actually modify some of these together. So 0.8, ease, and let's see here, boom, boom. So now because these are all going by class, it's not going to do each menu link individually. So what we want to just take with this menu link is just have it do the selected element. Now it should just go logo, about, cool. Click back here so the menu is visible. Services, so this is going to be this entire breakout link block. Let me just make sure that I got that set right. Breakout link block opacity 0, awesome. Got it selected. Breakout link block opacity, set that to 0. Bring it here after that, because again, that really is just the second link. All of this is going to be hidden because you didn't trigger this interaction yet. So this is basically just showing you the wrapper, the drop-down wrapper, until you trigger this when the menu's open. So again, 0.8, 100%, and then we'll just do each of these individual link blocks. I'll kind of move through this quick. Opacity, 100, ease. Set that to 0. Make sure we're taking the class. We're doing selected element so it doesn't change all of the links at the same time. Refinancing. Opacity. Initial state, 0. Let's bring it in again. Opacity. Ease. 800 milliseconds. Bring it in. Again, remembering selected element only. Actually, did I even do that on that one? Yeah, okay, I did. And then for the last link, let's open the menu, contact, new link, opacity, initial state, 0. And obviously just dragging this in is going to be very helpful. Come back, opacity, class, selected element, ease, 100%. And then we'll keep going down to the bottom. So let's get the text link, opacity. And yeah, this is gets to be pretty tedious work when you go through. So you want to make sure, like for example, right now I'm able to do this like relatively quickly with you, but you want to make sure that you have like your structure of your page pretty locked in. Like if you're looking at spacing issues or anything like that, you really don't want to be playing around with adjustment for spacing when you have all these animations to build at the same time. You want to make sure that you have the spacing and like all those adjustments done, then move into your animation, because it can become quite a pain to deal with afterward. So just moving right along. Duration, 8. This text link is not a big deal because it's a one-off, at least on this project, so you don't necessarily have to change it to class, but we can do selected element. And then the social links block, same idea, opacity, initial state, 0, opacity, 800 milliseconds, ease on. So this is going to look really slow and awkward. Boop, 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 cool. So that's about the timing, not necessarily the timing, but that's kind of the sequence we want. Logo, link, 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 all the way down. Now this should be, I just have to go back to that animation for a second for this. And what I did not do on this, size sublink, size is 0, initial state. Okay. 0. Let's just see what's happening there. There we go. All right. See, yeah, unfortunately, Webflow was rendering that a little wrong. But anyway, so now when you open this, close it. This is going to remain open because we don't have a closing sequence. So let's just reload the preview. Comes up. 1, 2, 3. Very, very slow. Very boring. But now we can go ahead and make adjustments because now we know exactly what the sequence and how it's going to work, and that at least it's going to look clean. So now we do menu open. Let's start bringing some things together. I like to keep hide show kind of independent. I like to have menu move, and then we're going to start bringing them into each other here. So let's just merge. And obviously these are all going to happen at the same time. I prefer to use around like a millisecond delay. So menu is going to be delay 0, logo is going to be delay 0.1, and it will drop to the bottom. Just keep going. So menu, menu link, delay 0.2, the breakout link, delay 0.3, and then just keep going through, 0.4, 0.5, 6, then we got the text link, 0.7, and social links, 0.8. So this should look a little cleaner. It's a little quick though. Probably want to add, what do I do for delay here? Hide show 0. That's the top line. Okay. So what I did is I animated the menu, then I had a quick break, and then I did that. Okay, so we have to just separate this because that's happening a little faster than we want. So I'm going to break the menu. Let that happen. There you go. So that makes a little bit more sense. I also have some motion coming up from the bottom in mind. We'll get to that in a little bit. I just want to get to moving the lines and whatnot first, but this is roughly where we're at. Menu drops and everything just kind of fades in. And of course, because this is open, Webflow's rendering that grid, but it would look like this. Boom. All right. Now that we have opacity, let's just go ahead and take all of this. We're going to duplicate it. Okay. Actually, I don't want to duplicate it. I want to do... what do I want to do here? I kind of want to show you how to get some of that sliding action while I have time. So let's just go ahead and do this. So we do move, logo move. We'll go down our whole lineup of stuff here, right? So you have logo, menu link. We're going to give it a move function, breakout link, move, menu, move. Let's make sure it's separate, move. Move. I'm just going to drag these in. I get my text, move, and then social links, move. I'm going to set all of these, so just holding shift, you can highlight it, and I'm just going to show you how to do it a little quicker. We want these all to be initial state, and we're going to drop it in the y-index. I'm going to use viewport width, but you can use pixels. I like to do maybe 5 viewport width. That should drop them down a little bit. Duplicate it, and what they're basically doing is they're aligned at 0. I'm dropping them about 5 viewport width, so they're going to go down. So as they fade in, they're going to kind of move up and fade, so it gives it a little bit of movement and action for you there. So let's bring this down to the end, and these will get filtered in. Just easier to edit them all at the same time. So now we want to change the duration to 0.8. We want to ease so they come in nice and smooth. We want to return them to their 0 position based on that viewport width, or pixels, however you want to do it. And then what we're going to do is just take them one at a time and just feed them right in. So logo with logo, social links, and you'll see them highlight actually in here. It makes it a little easier. So I get text link selected, text link, menu link, menu link. Just make sure you click, breakout link block, and the final menu link right here. Let's just see if that worked. There you go. So now you can see that you have a little bit of movement. So we went in, and these are set to the same thing. So the opacity comes up to 100. So setting it back to its original position, and we're or original opacity. And then we have the move function set to 0, which brings it back to the original state, and it matches the same delay. So they all happen together, which if I did this correctly, there's your menu. It's a little slow because I'm running the streaming and this at the same time. But as you can see, that gives you some nice smooth motion. Perfect. And we can still see our services pop up and down. And now what I want to do is show you how to close the menu. I'm going to just do this with a second click. And based on time, I think I might jump into showing you how to use that second menu close trigger so you can stop scroll. If that's something you're interested in, just tell me in the comments and let me know. I will work on that because I have till about 2 p.m. to go through this, so just let me know in the comments. But going back to menu close, things are a little different. I've already built this animation, but what I kind of want to do is, since I've already built this open function, and this was just for an example, I want to just take menu open and I want to duplicate it. All right, I'm going to get rid of menu close, because the thing is, in menu open, I already have all of the connections to the different elements as triggers for animation. So why do it all over again? You can just go in, set this to menu close. Now all of these initial states that I have set up on the top, I don't need them. You can get rid of them because we're closing the menu. You're going to reverse it a little bit in terms of menu hide show, because again, we don't want the menu to stay there, even though, because it will literally disappear, but it might still be in position. So we want to just make sure that we get rid of it so it doesn't affect anything. And that can go right at the end. Menu move, you also don't want the drawer to close before the links finish their animation, so bring that to the end. And what I used to do is have these all animate out, so these all have delay on them. So like we did before, so they all come in one after another like this. The thing with when you close a menu is you don't want to get too fancy. Like you don't want to have that full reverse animation, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and kind of cadence out. That's fine when you're opening a menu. It looks good. It kind of like catches your eye. You get all that movement. The best practice I like to use when you're closing an element is to drop all of that and have them move at the same time. Because when you're opening something, you have a little bit more time. You go, okay, wow, this is cool. But when you're closing it, it's like, I need this out of my way. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through, set all of these. So hit Shift, select all of them. Leave the duration, but we're going to set the delay to 0. Right? So now they're not going to go one after another after another. And we're going to have all of the opacities, because now they're at 100. We're going to go through, select opacity for logo, hold Command on your keyboard so you can select, and just do all opacities, opacity, opacity, opacity. Bring those back to 0. Then we're going to go back to the moves, because we want to drop them from their 0 position and bring them back down. I'm going to go move, move. And we're going to go back to that 10 viewport width setting. So now when you close, let's actually make sure we make the menu move out of the way. Back to -100%. And then we're going to have it hide. Now we should have nice clean animation in. Our menu's working. Awesome. Then we close, and it all just collapses together, and it makes it a lot more efficient. So you can take your time. Oh, just looks really good. When you close, you just need the menu out of your way. And even that's a little slow. You can tighten up as far as like the movement speed of the menu at the end. Maybe tighten that up to like 0.6 for the closing. So it comes in, and we go away. We can even shorten. Say we want to take, just to make things a little bit cleaner, select everything. We'll take the duration for all of the elements to go from 0.8 milliseconds to half that time to 0.4. Drop the menu to 0.4, and you'll see how much cleaner this is. So it comes in nice and smooth. Got some time, look through it, but you want to close it, get it out of your way. Boom, gone. Awesome. So in the chat, is there any questions that anyone has for me as far as what we've done? Anything else that you might want to see? Like I said, this is about where I wanted to get to today. I can do another video, I think, realistically, for that locking the scroll, if that's something you're interested in, and build that out. We can maybe do that next week or the week after, but I think that's going to be probably about it for now. I'll do a quick summary of what we did, and we'll be good to go. And of course, this will be up on YouTube, saved. You can visit it at any time. Definitely going to work on the resolution next time, because YouTube's telling me it's not so great. So I'm sorry about that, but I'm new to this, so we'll figure that out. But just to do a quick summary and show you and wrap up, let's just go through it. So go to our preview. So right here we have a button that sticks right on the top. Obviously you'd have your nav, everything built out. Ooh, I'm sorry. I forgot to do the animate these for you. I'll do that right now. So menu open button, initial states. So we're going to select top line. And what we want to do is we're going to move the top. Basically what's going to happen is you have your hamburger and your center line. They're going to drop into each other, and they're going to rotate. So they're going to meet in the center, and they're going to rotate. And we're going to have that come kind of instantaneously. And the center line is basically just going to disappear. And when we come out, they're going to rotate in, pop up, and then the center line or the middle line is going to reappear. So let's do the top line. Make sure you get it selected. Move. Bottom line. Move. And then middle line is just going to be opacity. Initial. Move. So we want to have the bottom line at, let's just do 0 for now, so it's in place. Initial state, top line, Y, 0. Initial state. And what we want to do is, I like to have these lines move, I'll duplicate it, in line with the menu opening. So when that menu pops down and drops, I want to have that animation kind of happen in sync with that. I don't want it to wait, and you'll see it like the way it feels natural. If you look on this project, for example, it's already moving, right? And this is just how it's rendering in here. But this is basically, whoop. So as the menu's moving, you're getting interaction, you're seeing what's happening. That's my preference. Everybody has their own. You're welcome to try it and do it your way. But that's just the way I like to do it. So what we're going to do here is bring our opacity down to 0, ease it out. We can do it. I like to keep that a little quicker. We'll do that over 400 milliseconds. Top line, we're going to go, just get our movement settings, ease. Nope. There we go. Top line, ease. And let's just see how we're moving here. Negative. Nope. I'm going to go 10. Actually, let me go back to my project real quick and see. Line 0. Oh, I did them by viewport width. That's why. So you have to play with these a little bit when you do it. You have to move them around, try to get the balance. Like sometimes the X isn't going to look right. It just takes a little bit of finagling to get it to work. But basically what I want to do is I'm doing top line based on the size 1.8 by negative 1.7. So they're off by a little bit. Your pixel they're not going to be identical because one's going to come up and one's going to kind of cross over just slightly, maybe by like a pixel or two. If you're doing pixels, for me, it's 0.1 viewport width, just so they align centered. So just play with it. You'll get it. It's not just takes a little bit of time. So I got my top line 1.8 and negative 1.7. So let's do top line 8. Width, bottom line, negative 1.7, ease. Let's just see how this looks. They're decently close. Close into the center. Middle line's disappearing. Now what we want to do is rotate them. So we want to do top line, bottom line. So top line, rotate. Bottom line, rotate. And we want this again. We'll select both of them. We'll do it, not ease in. I want to do ease. 400 ms. And then they'll be different. So the bottom line is going to go up. So let's go 45. And then the top line is going to go negative 45. Something about like that. Select them together, drop it in, see kind of how this looks. There you go. And just so you know, Webflow does glitch on a lot of computers, not just yours. But notice the X is a little bit off. We can adjust that. I think what's happening is on my project, I have the line. Oh, I'm hitting menu button close. That's why. Let's just see here. My lines are 0.75, so I think my line size is a little bit different. Let's go here, middle. This might bring us a little closer. Yeah, so there's your X. So it was just basically what happened is the divs were just a little bit too wide. So if that's the case, it really depends on the size of the lines that you're going to use, the actual height of them. That's going to change how much you want to bring them down. It's going to change not necessarily the angle because they're going to go to 45 degrees, but you might just have to bring them down just a little bit more. But this lines the X up pretty good for me. Now we just want to go ahead and reverse that animation out on the button. Let's go to menu close. And I want to do top line. And again, I'm going to want this to happen with this menu closing, or at least at the end. And we want to have it rotate first. Top line, bottom line. Let's return these to the original positions. Highlight both of them. Or ease. 400 millisecond duration. Back to 0 degrees for the rotation. I want to take the middle line. I'm going to bring it in for opacity. It's going to come up all the way to 100%. Ease, 400 milliseconds. But we're also going to want to move these two lines, right? And again, notice how I'm keeping these a little bit separate so I can just have some room to work with so they're not all bundled and confusing you, because that's not really what you want. So we'll select both of these again, ease, 400 ms, and then we're going to bring them back to 0. You can do percent, pixels, whatever it is that you have. But basically I'm bringing them back to the original location. Let's just see how this works slowly. Boom, we got our X. And it just, it steps out. So what we want to do here, it's all separated, bring these together. Can probably do rotate, put these together. So what's going to happen is it's going to rotate, it's going to give it a second, and then these are going to move up, and the opacity is going to come in for the middle line. Might happen a little quick. There you go. If you want to make it a little quicker, it's up to you. So you can just bring these all together. They'll just run really fast, kind of almost instantly, like what we have on the opening. Boom. There you go. Full screen menu. You have a drop down. Hide it. And you close it. And of course, the last thing that you want to do with anything is just on your menu button, because that's going to be the container on the parent. We just want to go down to the styles panel, add a pointer so the user knows what they're doing, that this is a link, and you're good. Close. All right. Klaus, if you have two drop downs, would you keep one open, or should it close when you open the other one? Are you talking about the drop down that's within the menu here? So you're talking, oh, let me re-enter that again. You're talking about this one here? Well, if you are talking about that one, what you can do is set a trigger for this particular one. So for example, when this opens, or rather when this, we'll close it, this opens, the user will then open up this drop down. And what you're saying is that, say they close this, should there be something to close the second drop down, is what you're asking. And if that's the case, yes. Let me see what I can do. It's not super complex. It's just what ends up happening sometimes on Webflow is you have that on second click, and I built this in where, for example, this interaction on first click it opens, on second click it closes. But say I'm opening this menu, let's start from scratch. User opens, they open here. I've only clicked on this trigger once. So if I set in this trigger, I think it's service drop. Oh, I see. No, I would definitely do that. The thing with what you're trying to do, it still is a similar idea. I mean, just consider this like a primary dropdown. When you use Webflow's interactions and you have on first click, on second click, it's still going to wait for that second click. So even though, say, I added a trigger here, or you had, say, specials was another dropdown, but you wanted, like, say, when I close this, you wanted that dropdown to close at the same time, Webflow is still going to wait for that second click on here. So what you'll end up happening is this will be closed, but you'll have to click it twice. And what I've done for that, and I'll show that in another video if you're interested, is you have to do this first click, second click trigger. It's just, to be honest with you, I think it's a little complex for this particular video, but it's definitely something I'd work with you with. And you can find me on Facebook too, Klaus, if you want, because I know there's only a couple people in here. You can find me on the Facebook group and just message me privately, and I can work with you, like take a half hour or something if you're interested, and just show you that. But it does get a little complex when you have a second interaction. So for example, like if I was to take, because I have a few more minutes, I might as well play around with it. My menu open, or rather my menu close, is part of this, right? I want to make the sublink wrapper close, or not move. I want to change its size. Let's go back here. No, everything's closed. There we go. So I want to take the sublink wrapper and I want to change its size from whatever it is. I want to transition it with an ease very quickly because we're closing the menu, and we want to go to 0 pix. And let's see how this works right now. See this open, we open this, and now see how it disappeared? Now here's the thing, notice the arrow is pointing up because Webflow is waiting for that second click to animate what's happening here. Now I click it again, now it'll open and work as it should. That's definitely something I'll go through another video. Klaus, if you want to, just message me on Facebook. We can talk about it and I can go through it with you privately. Totally interested. You can do it. It's a little bit, it becomes a little tough. For example, I did that on this project where this might look a little strange here, but I have this menu, this mega menu, kind of mega menu that opens up with all these selections. And essentially what there is, this will remain open, but when I come over, there's a trigger. So there's an invisible trigger all the way here. There's an invisible trigger here. And then everything in the page that darkened there is another invisible trigger. So instead of having an on second click for Webflow to wait on, you're just using the trigger. So you have only an on first click, or on first hover or whatever it might be. So we hover on here, trigger set up, we leave, same idea. But definitely message me on Facebook soon. I mean, I have time this week or next week that we can just jump on a quick 30-minute call and try to help you out, try to figure it out. But it's definitely something you could do. It just takes a little bit of time and thought. If I was better at JS and writing JavaScript, there probably is a really cool secret to do it, but I'm not quite there. This is the quickest way I could figure out how to get it done for you guys. And I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if any comments you have, or just reach out to me on Facebook for any help. And like I said, I'm willing to do more of these videos as long as there's interest and see how I can provide value. But anyways, thank you, and have a good day. Wrapping up.